Time to get your fix. It's a horrible gaming podcast. It's not good, it's not great. Horrible gaming podcast. It's not even what you would call fair. It's really not that good. Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Hello, my name is Zachariah Van Sliders with Old Man Gaming. With me as always is
Logan, aka Knight645.
And this is a Horrible Gaming Podcast. We have made it to episode 11. And so let's get right into our usual top of the show thing, which is disclaimers. Neither me nor Logan do this professionally. We do not make any money, so you might hear people chewing on fruit snacks. You might hear kids playing with dog food. Either way, we're not going to edit it because we don't make any money. I also want to just start giving credits shout out at the beginning of the episode because I have been woefully lax on giving credit to the people who have helped us with this podcast. Namely, my brother. You just heard the theme song. Good cough into the mic right off the bat.
Oh, perfect cough.
Hey, I am fighting a cold, everybody, so please excuse me. But my brother, who does the theme song you just heard at the beginning of this episode, and I also want to give his name is Nick Van Sliders. I also want to give a shout out to Mark Bell for doing the graphic banner. If you're watching this on YouTube, the Knights and, well, all the original graphic banners are from him. So, all right, so first off, one of our favorite segments is fan interaction, and we definitely got some fans interacting with us this week. Now, the question last week we proposed to you was, what's your play style? What do you like to play? So we got two people posting. One, Zelen S. He's actually a tiny wizard. A tiny wizard, friend of the show, posted, definitely a single-player narrative-focused player. While I do enjoy the breadth of content available in huge open-world games, more often than not, I'm too busy for the time required for these time sinks. Games like Breath of the Wild and Skyrim are some of my favorites. For me, in most cases, I prefer my games to have some sort of ending finishing point. That way, I can enjoy everything they have to offer and not feel like I wasted money buying and playing something else by leaving large portions of a huge game untouched. So,
makes sense.
I kind of disagree with some of that for my playstyle one, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. That's very respectful. Thank you for the comment, A Tiny Wizard. We appreciate it. Then we got another post from a friend of the show, Thor Zednick. And he says, I find myself going for the third-person action more than anything. I'm not going to say it needs a storyline or anything, but a compelling direction to the will go. I'm gonna say he missed a word there. To the game will go a long ways toward earning my $60. Recent examples would be Red Dead 2 and Assassin's Creed. And then P.S. He says I don't have to read this on the podcast, but I'm going to read it anyway because I read everything you type on the podcast. P.S. You don't have to read this part on the next podcast, but your next bag of dog food is on me, buddy. That was awesome. He is, of course, referring to the fact that on the podcast last week, you can hear me reprimanding my child for playing with dog food. So, those were the big fan interaction questions we got. Fan interaction answers we got from you guys out there, and we appreciate them. So, Logan, what's your play style, man?
Shooter. Anything I can shoot, I love it. Just, if you give me a game that I can shoot, it's fantastic.
I also want to say, from a completely neutral standpoint, Logan is also strangely good at any shooter right off the bat.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but like if you hand me a gun, I can probably hit my shots.
Right.
And
it's
it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I can just jump onto a game. It will be completely different than what the other games would be, and I can just hit my shots.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very strange. It's very strange because the mechanics of these games are sometimes very different. And you can just always see, like every time, like Logan will be like, I found this new shooter, let's play. And I'll get excited because maybe we'll be on the same level. And then I go in and he's just carrying me whole goddamn time again.
and this is one of the reasons why I'm not huge on Apex Legends, because it only has the Kraber. But if you have a shooter with a sniper that can one shot to the head, I'm in love.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to capture some PubG at some point of you making amazing shots while I just die in the background.
Attempting amazing shots and then only hitting one per game. Attempting like 30.
Okay, so my playstyle, I'm going to actually go quite the opposite of our good friend ATW. Not to say that I do not respect his opinions whatsoever. I mean, they're his playstyle. I totally get it. But for me, I want the game to be huge. I never want to finish the game because I spend $60 on it. So even if I get bored of it, I want to be able for it to sit on my shelf for 3 or 4 months and then me get bored of all the other games and go, I haven't played that in a while. Pop it in and find something new to do. I also think games as service is a good thing. I'm surprised I haven't gotten more hate for saying this repeatedly every week, but I like constant updates and additives to the game and events because it always makes me feel like I have something new to do in my game, which is exciting and wonderful. I like those games. I never want to actually finish a game because the way I want games to be, I want to be able to just live in the game world whenever I want to. And I feel like if I finish it story-wise, like completely and totally, then there's no reason for me to go back there and live in it. And then that's when the game usually gets traded in, honestly. So
exactly. Once you get bored.
Yeah. And I don't get me wrong, I like the shooters. I like a nice heavy-handed RPG mechanic, though. I don't like turn-based most of the time. I like action RPGs, I guess, would be the best way to say it then. When you get right down to it. So there is 2 other things I want to talk about real quick as we kind of close down this segment for this week. Number one, I did a review a few weeks back for a game called Astro Near. This game is basically like a kind of a space exploration thing, kind of in the vein of No Man's Sky, but it's very different. People did not like my review because I did not like that game. And somebody actually asked me to go back to it, which I did, and I actually replied to that person's comment. But in case that person is listening, I just want to say in voice again, I still don't like this game, but if you like this game, by all means play it, and enjoy it. Games are subjective. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on the show too. And it's why I don't give scored reviews. Those reviews are the opinion of one 38-year-old dude who could be completely out of touch with what good is. So I don't like the game. I feel like it suffers from a lack of identity, basically. But I just want to say, if you guys want me to go back to reviews, I will. But I'm probably going to come up with the same response. And if I do, please, I could be wrong. That's why they're called horrible reviews. That's why this is called a horrible podcast. Okay? So, and thank you for your comments and your participation. But if you like a game, go out and play it. Okay? And then for fan interaction next week, I want to get a little negative, Logan. I want to ask the question to all the people out there, what is the most toxic thing in gaming right now, in your opinion? What is it? What's the thing that, you, every time you hear about it, you roll your eyes and you shrug? Is it games as service model? Is it microtransactions? Is it early access? What is it? What is it? I want to hear what you think the most toxic thing in gaming is right now. And I think that'll be a really interesting. If people answer that one, I think that's going to be really interesting.
Can I answer a person? No.
As long as it's not me. Most toxic thing in my gaming is you, Zach. Stop shooting me in the back of the head in PUBG.
True.
I'm always trying to help. You have to understand that. I'm always trying to help.
I know it.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to start off with something a little bit different than we usually do. We're going to talk about PubG this week. That would be Player Unknown's Battlegrounds. I don't. It's not really the original, but the one everybody thinks of as the original Battle Royale. Now, Logan, you're a big player of this. And they just released the Season 4 with all sorts of new features and new stuff. Now, I'm an early adopter of this game. I played it back when it first came out, and there was rubber banding and all sorts of stuff. First came out for console, by the way. So, I haven't been playing that much. I did play a couple of games with you just recently to kind of try and be able to weigh in on this. But why don't you give us the overview, what you like about it, what you don't like?
So, I'll start off with what I do like, of course, start positive.
That's how I like to do things.
I like how you can now play PS4 and to Xbox. There's cross-platform, which
hallelujah.
that is amazing. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Obviously, cross-platform is never a negative. It never really is, and I really enjoy that. Well, that really, and they didn't mess with anything too drastic. That's my whole positive section. Now we go on to the negatives, which, because there wasn't too many positives. The negatives are PS4 players don't play this game. They just don't. If I get 10 kills out of a game, 9 of those people are Xbox. There isn't any PS4 players playing. So it really didn't help too much with speeding anything up or anything like that. It's just more of like if your friend plays, then you can play with each other now.
Why do you think it is that PS people avoid this game? Do you think they're just playing Fortnite, or?
I have no. Well, it did come out earlier for Xbox.
It did.
So maybe like it just lost traction when it made it to PS4.
That would be a fair assumption.
But yeah, there's just no PS4 people, and it tells you when you get a kill right next to the name, it will say Xbox or PS4, and there is very, very rare occasions where I actually end up killing a PS4 player or a PS4 player kills me.
Well, I think Xbox, in a way, even though the game was real broken when they brought it out into beta, they got it first, and that exclusivity, I think everybody just kind of thinks of it as an Xbox game.
No, I can definitely agree with that.
Yeah, even though it's not anymore, I think everybody just kind of thinks of it as an Xbox One game.
And so I don't think that's like too bad of a negative, since it doesn't really affect Xbox players. It's only positives, but it's definitely something to mention. And they didn't really do anything with the update. Like I'm saying, they didn't do any updating with the weapons.
Okay.
They added a new shotgun, but we are yet to try that out. That is coming in the next update.
Okay.
So we're yet to try that out yet. And
so you think they're not doing enough then?
They added, yeah, basically. Their content level, the new season starts in 14 days. That is something to mention.
Okay.
Okay. The season 4 started a while back.
Now I want to ask you a question, because I haven't played a ton of battle royales that have these like competitive seasons going on, and so when I went in to play with you the other day, the game kind of looked almost completely different to me.
Okay.
So what is the season? Like, explain what season play in a battle royale looks like, because like if I'm playing like a season in like I play a lot of digital card games on my phone. If I'm playing a season of that, it's just me ranking up by myself as high as I can go, because I get better like cards at the end of the season when the season ends. And For Honor is kind of the same way, although For Honor is more like a team-based thing. So what does a season for Battle Royale look like?
A season for Battle Royale, it takes it takes about 3 months. So it goes in 3 months variables, and at the end of every 3 months, you usually get a new battle pass, and your KD, your time to kill, the damage taken per match, all of your stats reset.
Okay.
So that it goes on to the next season.
Oh, okay. So it's not like a total overall kills that you have anymore. It's each season how well you done.
Yes.
But as far as earning stuff, it's just basically cosmetics. It's like a battle pass type cosmetic thing. So like a Dauntless season then.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. Well, I will say, and I'm guessing this isn't in the new update, and like I said, I played PUBG a lot when it first came out. I haven't played a lot of it recently. Played some with you, of course. But I did notice the leveling up on the guns.
Yes.
That looks really cool. Like, really cool. And that was the thing that immediately pulled me in as a player who hasn't played in a while. I'm guessing that wasn't something that's just recent and it's been around for a little bit. But what do you get out of the leveling up the gun?
That came into Season 4. So at the start of Season 4, that's when they started it. And you get charms. Like little dog tags on the side of your weapon.
Okay.
For leveling it up. And it goes all the way up to level 100 right now is the max. And the charms are pretty cool in my opinion.
Oh, that's cool.
But
they don't have like a special in-game effect. They just
they're just like you
cool
can just
decorations.
Exactly. Well, it is a battle royale, so you can't really give them too much or it'd be overpowered.
Right. Right.
But yeah, they look really cool. It gives you something to work towards. And if you're a person that plays the game like a lot, like a streamer or somebody that does this professionally, and if you max out that weapon, it gives you incentive to go try out different weapons.
Right.
Normally, you would never even attempt.
Right. You'd stick with what you like.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I will say I'm really happy about the crossplay, whether or not PlayStation people are playing with it. Everything needs to be crossplay. That needs to be the next thing that everybody
Agreed.
Everybody agrees to. I mean, it needs to be the same as computers. Like, and anybody worrying about their computer going out of business, there's still 4 different types of computers you can get. They all run the same stuff, you know?
Exactly.
And that's what it needs to be. I need to be able to play with PlayStation people, PC people, whatever. That's the way I want it.
That's the way it should be.
I think that's the way, it should be all around. All right. Okay.
So,
go ahead.
So Zach, I've heard that there's some new Xbox news that I've been ignorant about.
Well, it's actually not Xbox news. It's PlayStation news.
Okay. Starting my ignorance?
Well, we can only dip our toes into this. I haven't been able to do a lot of research on it because basically, just for everybody out there listening, we record this on Wednesday, and then we post it
at 9 a.m.
Right, at 9 a.m., and we post it on Friday. So yesterday, during my family time, basically some news dropped about PS5. So I could only learn some things, and I want to thank a tiny wizard, ATW, for tagging me in it on Facebook so that I could even see it in the first place. But basically, PS5 came out with a release window for not PS5. Sony came out with a release window for the PS5. It's going to be holiday next year, just like Xbox is, so they're going to be competing again. And then they also started talking about some really weird features on the PS5. Like, of all the things to, advertise, and to, we're going to do a launch window release, this is what we're going to talk about, they focused on their controller.
What?
Yeah, so basically they said the release window, and then they basically went into the fact that their controller is getting really, really newfangled. They're putting haptic feedback instead. They're having a haptic feedback kind of system in the controller instead of a rumble pack, and then they're also adding resistance triggers. So what that means is instead of when you get shot in a video game or when you're jumping a cliff or something like that, your controller rumbles. Like, it shakes in your hand to kind of give you that feeling of the thing that's happening on the screen. But there's nothing special about this. It just shakes. That's it. There's one setting, and it's shake for a period of time, right?
Yep.
So haptic feedback is going to basically... It will somehow make you feel like, in your hands, the thing that's happening on the screen. So it won't just shake it'll be like if the person runs into a brick wall, somehow in your hands you'll feel like your controller just hit a brick wall. And if like if somebody's shooting you, it'll feel like little pips instead of little shakes. So like it's going to be a very in-depth feedback system in the controller. The resistance triggers are basically the trigger. They can now digitally make it harder to kind of push against. So like if the trigger was tighter in the game, they can actually make it like a harder draw on the trigger. Or if your character was like screwing a screw in, they could actually simulate the actual amount of torque in the trigger that it would require to make it move.
That sounds amazing.
Okay, we'll get that out now because I'm gonna be an old man about it. So why does it sound amazing to you?
Well, there's really like no downside besides the fact that I think that it would make the controller die faster. That's really my only
like battery
downside
life
that I can think about it. Yeah, being a shooter, like I've said earlier, if I can feel how many bullets are hitting me on the controller, like right now I have to see them and I have to basically guess. Right. And it's a lot harder for me to be able to do that.
Right.
If I can feel everything that's happening and it takes away from me looking at exactly what I want to look at, that'd be perfect.
Right. I mean, you let me know when you want me to start being an old man about this.
Hey, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I will completely agree with you. On the gameplay side, this is really cool. I like the idea of having a more immersive play, and I love the idea of trigger torque being a thing in shooters. Whether or not that's actually going to be a thing or not, like the programmers put it in, I don't know, but I think that would be really cool. However, when they have already said when I buy Scarlet, I can use any controller I already have for my Xbox One on Xbox Scarlet. So now I have to get this new controller with PlayStation 5. It will be a must because the games will be rigged for that, so I will have to actually get that new controller. So how much does that... And really, here's the old man look at it. How much are those controllers going to cost? Because that technology is huge. It's not cheap to make. Controllers already cost $70. What is it going to cost for me to get a haptic feedback sensor every time I want to play a game? My other issue is when you're putting the things that, when my controllers break down, the first two things that are always go. I mean, what are the first two things that always go for you when a controller breaks down?
When a controller breaks down, it's usually the bumpers.
Okay, bumpers. That's a good one. That's not the one that breaks down for me, but that is a good one. The ones that break down for me are the analog. It begins to drift, always, and the trigger starts to stick. And the trigger starts to stick because I'm squeezing it all the time to play these games. So now you've made a feature that actually makes me put more pressure on the thing that I break the fastest.
That's true.
And I think that like everybody's looking at the cool features of this, and nobody's looking at it like a practical old man and saying, how much is this going to cost us, and how fast is this thing going to break down? Because I'm going to have to replace it when it does.
Well, as young people, we don't think about those consequences.
I know. I know. As an old man, I think about those consequences because I've got a wife that I got to convince to allow me to get games, and I've got a bank account that I have to keep in the red so that me and my daughter can eat. You know, like it's not like I could just go out and drop $140 every time my trigger breaks. It just doesn't. The other thing that bothers me is I don't know what the bundles are going to be. I really don't. But if Xbox comes out and says you already can use your controllers, and they've already said that all of their games are going to be backwards compatible on day one. PlayStation 5 has finally said, Sony has finally said that PlayStation 5 will have backwards compatibility, but probably not for all their games at launch. Again, credit to Tiny Wizard for getting me that article. But Xbox has already said, they've tripled down. They've said, hey, all of our games from 4 generation of games, anything that's backwards compatible now will be playable on this new system. So if you're telling me all that, if they give me a bundle that's just, hey, this is Project Scarlet in a box, you've got the controllers, you've got the games, we'll sell it to you $50 cheaper, that's the system that I'm going to get because I already have 4 controllers upstairs and I already got a library of games, you know?
True. It could be the selling point for a lot of people.
I mean, I don't know that necessarily. I think we're so far in that I think the people who want to play games, like, I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who are now finally adopting video games, or there are people out there going to buy their first system. I get that, but for the most part, I think gamers who like PlayStation and are playing on PlayStation are going to keep playing on PlayStation. And I think gamers who like Xbox are going to keep playing on Xbox. I think that's just the world we live in. And then sometimes they'll buy both or whatever to get the spares. But I think for the most part, like, you've got your favorite system. That's your favorite system. So you have to do a lot to get rid of them. You know what I mean?
Well, exactly. They make it too easy to move on to the next system to even change.
Right.
Like, being an original PlayStation player, I used to own a PS3. Then I moved up to Xbox One, and that was such a hassle. Everything, like I couldn't move anything up, and I had to restart everything, and it was just a pain.
I switched over. Luckily, I switched over before there was like gamer score or anything. I switched between PlayStation 2. I didn't get a PS3 because it was so expensive. I got an Xbox 360 because it was cheap.
Yeah.
And at the time I was very poor dishwasher. So that's when I made my switch, and I've been with them ever since because, I mean, even though Xbox One was a mistake at the beginning, they kind of righted that ship. Most of the time, it's either a cheaper experience or there's more options for me to play easier.
Yep. Yeah.
The other thing is for me, backwards compatibility has to happen, and it's probably my biggest issue with Nintendo, and the fact that every time you buy one of their systems, you've got to buy all of their old games over again with a new arcade online service. That, I don't know why Nintendo people are more mad about that. I'd be boycotting that system if I wasn't already not with that system. Like, I invest in these games. I look at these games as investments in my time, in my fun, and in my wallet. So, like, I want all my games. If I want to go back and play a game from 5 years ago, just like I said, I pick games for that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if I want to go back and play Borderlands on Xbox 360 from the first, I can do that. And that's what I need out of my system. And PlayStation stopped offering that after PlayStation 2. And I don't know why. They were the first ones to do it. They stopped doing it. Well, I'm out, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. So we spent a little time on that. We'll probably talk a little bit more about the new consoles next week as more information emerges over the course of the next week as far as like release date and features and stuff. Okay? All right, so the next topic I want to discuss is just to have an open discussion about how video games are reviewed and how their systems may or may not be broken for the reviews. So what I mean by this is, okay, how do you review a game that's going to get content for 2 straight years? How do you give a game a score when the levels of people enjoying a game are so deep? And I think that giving games scores may or may not hurt the game. You kind of understand where I'm going with this?
No, I definitely do. I definitely do.
Like,
I think that gamer scores, like you say in your podcast, like they're basically irrelevant. Like,
but that's my big problem with them is they're not irrelevant. They should be. Like,
yeah.
When I do my
exactly.
horrible reviews, my reviews are not good. I want to say that again ahead of time. But the one thing that I do that I am proud of is I don't give scored reviews. I give pros and cons of the game in my opinion and whether or not I'm going to continue to play it after the review. I think that there are games that suffer from that score that shouldn't necessarily suffer. And I think that games as a medium, you have this double way that it is presented to their audience, right? Like the front way is the story, the writing, the graphics, the game itself, right? But then there's this whole other way that comes at them, which is how the game is played and how it feels to play the game for the person, right? Mm-hmm. So almost genre is even weird when it comes to games. Like, what's an RPG in games? You know?
That's true.
Like, I'm playing Greedfall right now, which is a wonderful game. Everybody should go out and try it. But it's an action RPG. It's got tons of RPG elements. However, the fighting is all like in the moment sword fighting, with a little bit of magic and guns, but in the moment sword fighting. Then you've got like Bard's Tale 4 is another game I like. Role-playing game, a lot of the same aspects like equipment and inventory management, but the fighting itself is turn-based, and like you decide what each fighter is doing based on that. Like that's completely different mechanics, and we're going to call them both role-playing games, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I just want to have a discussion about review systems. I mean, do you think it's broken? Do you think they don't deserve scores? Like, we shouldn't do scores anymore? Like, what are your feelings on it?
Scores don't make any sense. Whenever I go to review a game nowadays, and this is just my young guy perspective on it, is I either look at the 3-star reviews. The 5-star, they're overrated. 1-star, those are just people that had a bad time playing the game. So
that's a good.
So you gotta look right at the 3 stars and just go from there. And then so go to the 3 stars, see what they think, and then go check out a streamer. Just go check out a streamer, see if you would enjoy this game. There you go.
You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and second that right there, because first of all, I loved your 3-star review strategy. That's great, and it's terrible on mobile games too, where like you go into a game, they only ever give you the top review and the bottom review, and it always looks like one dude wrote it, but he's bipolar. Like it's like the 5-star review is like, this is the greatest game that's ever been. There's no problems with it at all. Even the microtransactions are splendid. It's magical. And then the next review down is like, this is the worst game. It's completely broken. It made monkeys kill my parents. It's terrible. Like, and it's just like, whoa, man. Like the 3-star reviews, like seeking out 3-star reviews, I think is one of the greatest pieces of advice you have ever put forward on this podcast. But the streamer thing, I agree. I tell you, I never understood streaming. I know, that sounds like an old man. Well, I'm an old man, and that's how it works. But I never really understood streaming. I understood, like, gaming videos, like somebody like Game Grumps when they make jokes while they're playing a game, or, like, people who are doing, like, not playthroughs, but, like, different strategies. I never understood, like, I'm going to tune into Twitch and watch Ninja play a video game that I could literally be playing right now, until PubG, because PubG, everybody's playing it, and I was like, it's coming to Xbox, do I want to play it? And then I went on Mixer, and I started watching people play PubG, and then I was like, this is great for this. I can see exactly how this game works, and decide whether I want to get this game or not, or be part of this game. That is literally, I think streaming should be the new review system for video games. I think you're 100% right on that. As far as scores, I think sometimes it hurts games. Like, you don't go out and get those 7s or 6s because the guy who was playing it didn't like the mechanic of it. And doesn't mean that, like, I could go to a game and I can be like, I love playing. Okay, you know what? I'll give examples. I love Monster Hunter World. I love Monster Hunter World. Everybody who has ever listened to this podcast knows I love Monster Hunter World. I have at least 200 hours into that game over the course of, like, 2 or 3 years or however long it's been out. that game, I hate the story. The narrative is abysmal. They're all these weird anime characters. Everybody vaguely feels sexualized. And nobody talks the way normal people would talk because they're animes. So everybody's got to say like right after everything. Super frustrating. However, the gameplay and the gameplay loop of it is so strong that I love it that much. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely agree.
You take the opposite. You go to Max Payne 3. I love Max Payne 3. I love Max Payne 3 for the narrative of Max Payne 3. The gameplay itself is pretty token. It's like something they could have done in the 90s and they did in the 2000s just to make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the shooting's very basic, the bullet time's very basic. It's like this has been redone, but you play it for the storyline. And that's just these two huge ways. Like that means you can fall in love with a game that has a terrible storyline, and you can fall in love with a game that doesn't have a good gameplay mechanic. So how do you give us point score to that? You know?
Zach, I hate to cut you off from this, but I have the perfect example in front of me right now.
Okay.
PubG on Xbox. I'm on the Xbox store right now,
okay.
And it is rated a 2.6 game. The reviews are all from back when the game was terrible.
Right.
But then if you Google PubG rating on Xbox One right now, and this is in the past, I don't know, 6 months?
Right.
Every single rating added together from the past 6 months is a 4.2. So,
well, and that's the thing. That's another thing, a whole nother issue to it, which is the whole content. Like, that game came out as a beta.
Yep.
People were reviewing that game when the game developers said, this is not finished. Like, that's crazy to me. That thing is a 2.6 because people rated it before the game was actually released.
Oh, exactly.
Like, could you imagine if, like, somebody went to a movie set and they just saw some people kind of, like, rehearsing a movie, and then they could give their reviews based on that? Like, movies would be insane. Like, I think that's a crazy way to look at it. And I'm not even talking about just that. Like, when a game comes out, even when it comes out, you're going to get 2 years of content. How do you review that? Borderlands 3 is going to have 2 years of content.
Yeah.
2 years of updates. It's already changed. In some ways, it's a completely different game from the game that came out 3 weeks ago. But they reviewed it 3 days prior and gave it a 9.0. Another thing, not even positive, is they gave it that 9.0 when they didn't even know about the split screen issues.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't know. I guess we've talked about this all that we can. I think we're both in agreement on most of our subjects. I do want to say one last thing. For anybody out there looking for in-depth reviews without a score, if you go to a podcast service, you can actually get all of IGN's reviews read to you as almost like a podcast. Like it's just a dude reading the written report of the review itself. They're like 5 to 15 minutes. They do not give the scores. It is absolutely the way to listen to a review if you're not going to listen to mine, which mine are terrible and you shouldn't. But
we're not sponsored.
We're not sponsored, but it's one of the things I never actually listened to the review on like I never watch the reviews anymore. I wait for it to come out in this audio medium and then I listen to it. And it's very clearly they did this for like hearing impaired people or maybe sight impaired people. I don't know, but either way, they don't give the score in the review. They don't read it out. And because of that, it's amazing. You get a perfect accounting of this person's experience with the game, and it gives you a better idea of whether you should play it or not. All right, so everybody out there, we're going to give Fantasy Corner a little break because we want to do a new segment. We had so much fun with the listing stuff when ATW was on. We wanted to do it again. But we want to do it a little bit more. So we're going to be doing a new segment for the next couple of weeks called The Horrible Lists. Rules for this. We are going to basically pick a genre. Then we're going to pick our 3 favorite games in that genre. The idea behind it being that they are recommendations should you want to get into that genre from Old Man Gaming. I will also be posting these a week after the podcast has come out up on the Facebook site. So at any time you can go back and see what our recommendations for shooters and RPGs or whatever. Also, we can change them as we go along. I think that'll be fun. So those are the rules. So it has to be a game that we can actually play right now. Just so everybody knows. So nobody at me when we don't pick Golden I from Nintendo 64. It has to be games that you can play right now on a console. Okay? So Logan, start us off, man.
So I'm going to cheat like usual. And
come on, man. Come on. Can we have one of these where you don't cheat?
No.
Good
It's
God.
a tradition.
This is ridiculous.
Because with my first one, because all the rest of them are going to be based on my playstyle, but if I'm recommending to another person,
right.
if you don't like fast time to kills, one, I'm probably not your guy to talk to, but go try out Apex Legends. That's the only reason I really don't like the game. Go try out Apex if you like slow time to kills.
Did I just fall through a wormhole into another dimension? Did you just recommend with your first shooter Apex Legends?
Oh no, I'm not saying I like it. I'm not saying it at all. But I have to admit their grind, and it is a good game if you like slow time to kills, which I don't at all.
So this is one of your top 3 shooters that you're recommending.
No. I said I'll cheat. That's my 4th. We're going into number 3.
You just wasted time. You just wasted 2 minutes. Can't get those 2 minutes back, people. Okay.
And so we're going into, if you like fast time to kill, I'm your man to talk to. And go try out Rainbow Six Siege.
Ooh.
Okay? It is very strategic. There's not fast-paced at all. You will be peeking around a corner for 3 minutes straight, but when you get that kill, it's so sweet. It's so fantastic.
I do love games that really make you feel like you won something with killing. It's one thing I can never get into the Call of Duties because it's you just kill so much. Who cares? But
my second thing for you to try out is PubG. The only reason that PubG is not number 1 is because number 1 is a legend, and number 2, PubG, you have to really be accurate with your shots. It has this huge learning curve. You have to get around hitting your shots from distance, and you have to learn your bullet velocity, which is a huge thing. But it is a fantastic game, and if you want a real shooter battle royale, there's no place other to go. They have it all.
I have to agree. Not to make this segment even longer, but PUBG's realistic take on battle royales and guns. I mean, it's not perfectly realistic, but it much more down to earth, and it's just so sweaty. I love that about it.
Then for my third one,
your number 1, right? This is your number 1.
This is my number 1.
Keeping track correctly.
Number 1, Titanfall 2. Go try it out. It has no downside. It's the greatest game ever. Titanfall, please sponsor us. It's the best thing ever. There's no better way to go. The movement is orgasmic, and the shooting is phenomenal.
Okay. All right. That was...
Back to you, Zach.
I knew it was coming. When you said Rainbow Six Siege, I thought you were saying your number 1, and I was like, that's not right. What's going on? And then you were like, that's my number 3. And I was like, okay, all right. Okay, so Rainbow Six Siege is your number 3. Just to recap, your number 2 is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, or as the kids like to call it, PUBG.
Yep.
And then your number 1 with a bullet is Titanfall 2.
Of course.
Okay. All right.
No other place that you can go with the number 1 spot.
All right. Yeah, that's true. All right. So I am assuming it is my turn then.
It is.
Okay. So this was a tough one for me. I don't actually play a ton of shooters, just like I'm sure when we get to the role-playing games, it's going to be a little bit tougher for you.
Sure.
But I'm going to give my number 3, and I find it really funny that you almost accidentally ruined this. My number 3 is Apex Legends.
It's a good game.
Here's the thing.
It is a good game.
I think as far as a battle royale goes, with the exception of the toxic player base, or how the player base can be a little bit toxic, I think absolutely it is a battle royale for beginners.
Yep. Yeah.
I think you can go into it. It's got a slower time to kill, so you can get used to things a little bit faster. You can get acclimated a little bit faster. It's a little bit more action-y, so you're not... PubG, I love PubG, but its realism means you're running through a field for 90% of the game. Whereas this one, there's a lot of shooting, there's a lot of action right off the bat. The characters make it interesting. It's very pretty. And the fact that also if you get on a team, you can get carried for a little bit and actually get to see the game and see what other people are doing. I think the only thing that bothers me about that game is I think some of the better players shit on people who are new to it, and because of that might push a little people away. But still, if you're just wanting to see what Battle Royale is all about and have never played a Battle Royale, I think Apex Legends is free. It's the perfect download for that. So, that brings us to our number 2. My number 2 is really weird because I don't actually own my number 2. And I have repeatedly gotten it and gotten out of it and gotten it and got out of it, but I really wanted to take the recommendation part of this to heart. So my number 2 is Destiny 2.
Ooh.
Now, here's the reason I'm recommending it. Destiny and I have a weird, tortured experience. I played Destiny, the first one, I ended up trading it in. Actually, I didn't end up trading it in, but I ended up stopping playing it. I never got into Destiny 1 on the new systems because it was kind of between generations, and Destiny 2 came out. I got into it. I liked it. Then it did some things that I didn't like, so I went away. Now Activision is on their own. They're an independent company. And this is the company that invented... I don't want to say invented looter shooters, because we all know who invented looter shooters. We're going to talk about that later. But but this is the company that made it games as service, that brought it into this century, and they changed the way you look at how you play first-person shooters. Honestly, I don't think there's a way around that. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with it, even if they're doing it begrudgingly. The other thing about Destiny 2 right now is it is free. You can go download Destiny 2 for free, and I think you get everything up until, the last 2 or 3 DLCs. Then you got to start paying.
Yeah.
But it's free right now. Go try it. That's great, and I don't mind if that's the way they want to do things. If they're going to give me the base game for free and then be like, hey, this is the base game for free, please give us some money later for more content, cool, I'm down. But I think it's a great looter shooter, great cooperative play. It also has some good verses. And since Activision has left Destiny 2, they've really worked on it quite a bit and done a lot of things to make it very interesting. So that brings us to my number 1. And my number 1, anybody who's been listening to the podcast for a few weeks will know that it is Borderlands 3. Borderlands 3 is the third installment in the greatest looter shooter ever made, Borderlands.
Of course.
I mean, they took... What's great is now in 3, they're taking some of their cues from games like Destiny 2 that have come in their wake and are doing regular updates. They're going to be doing regular content drops. It has had performance issues. I know people have experienced it, and it sucks. I don't like performance issues either, but you still got to take the game for what it is, and it is probably one of the most in-depth, interesting shooters. On top of that, it feels good. All these games feel good, and that's what's really interesting about them for me. So they feel good to actually shoot it. So those are our horrible lists for shooters. We did it, Logan. We got 3 down.
First horrible list.
First horrible list, right. Okay, and that brings us to the shameless self-promotion of the show. Logan, you got anything to plug this week?
Well, first, rip Fantasy Corner, and
It'll come back. It'll come back. I just was running out of questions to ask.
And I still have my YouTube channel at Nightspace645. I got a bunch of great content on there, and soon to be another PUBG video.
I do also want to say, if you just type in Night645 without the space, you'll find you. Because I do it regularly.
You can always find me.
I'm always there. All right. For me, as usual, Old Man Gaming. Check out everything we have to offer. We have horrible reviews. We also have a regular Let's Play series I do with with a friend of the show, Phil Billy, Borderlands expert, where we play Borderlands 3 from start to finish while talking about ridiculous stuff. If you've checked it out, it's a lot of fun. And then, of course, this show every Friday. So please check out everything we have, like and subscribe. You can also find us on Facebook, Old Man Gaming at Facebook. And please share this if you like it. We are very close to 50 subscribers. I want to make that happen. So if you know people, just share it. Just share it on Facebook. Who knows who will like it? Just tell your friends about it. Please keep us growing and expanding. So other than that, we love everybody. We'll see you guys next week with your fan interactions. And
Peace out, brothers.
Episode 12 out. As long as you guys keep watching, we'll keep making them.